On today's episode, we talk about whether it's better to buy or lease an electric vehicle, explain why we give extra points to cars with standard advanced safety systems, and look at the trend of cars coming with bigger wheels and tires. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Emily Thomas.
And I'm Ryan Pizlakowski.
And this is another All Questions episode. We love them. Keep them coming. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Send them on in, video or text. Ryan, the first question I'm going to throw to you, it comes from Brian. When looking at CR's car ratings, can I compare ratings across categories? For example, would a Honda Accord with a good rating for ride and a BMW 7 Series with a good ride rating be similar? Is it an apples-to-apples comparison?
So the answer is yes. The ratings you see in the magazine or online are what we refer to as a global scale. That when we're rating these things internally, meaning they're all in the same universe. They're all in the same universe. So we want to show the differences between cars that are not so good and that are good, even without capturing the categories. They're all the same. Consider them all the same. So in this case, the 7 Series could ride as well as or as bad as a Honda Accord, however you want to decipher that, because the 7 Series you would expect it to ride really well because it's an ultra luxury expensive car. But in this case, it was the same.
So the
answer is yes.
So Brian, the answer is yes. You can compare them all on the same scale. And so our next question comes from Coldip, who says, what is your opinion on installing a front-facing convertible child seat in the middle of the rear seat on sports cars like the Camaro, Mustang, etc.? Installing the seat in the middle helps my kid have a better view of what's going on and keeps him, and us, happy throughout the journey. Are there any issues with this setup? Well, fortunately, we have our child seat expert here today. So, Emily, give us a lowdown on what people should do with a seat like this, a car like this.
So I went back into the ratings to see when we had the Camaro and the Mustang, what was the configuration that was available. So there are rear seats, yes, but there's only outboard seating positions. So that hump that's kind of there between the two outboard seats, which I believe is what he's referring to, the middle of the rear seat, is not an actual seating position. So pro tip, if there's no seat belt for the spot that you think is a seat, it's not a real seat. Don't use it. Not for you, not for your kids, not for anybody.
Sure.
Which, I know makes it challenging because you want that extra seating position. However, in doing my research, the Mustang's owner's manual actually explicitly states that it's not a seating position and should not be used for car seats. But let's say that, it was an actual seating position, in a perfect world. And, they wanted to be able to use the lower anchors that are at the seat crease from each of the outside seating positions. And what we call that is center borrowing. And in order to be able to do that, you have to take a couple of things into consideration. One, you need to find out whether or not your vehicle manufacturer actually allows for that. Because in those outboard seats where the anchors, you have two anchors present, that is, there's standard spacing for that. They have to be safety tested at that spacing. So if you're going to now borrow so you can do it in the center seat, you're changing that standard spacing to a non-standard, right? It hasn't been safety tested unless the manufacturer already specifically states that in their manual. But then you also have to double check and make sure that your car seat manufacturer allows it. Like both have to be compatible because they both have to be testing for this.
You could be misusing it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a misuse that has serious implications because you're changing the way that car seat is going to get loaded in the event of a crash, right?
So, is it common? Do a lot of seat manufacturers, do a lot of car manufacturers, or is it just like it's hit
kind of gray area? Yeah.
So it's become a little bit more common as they're seeing the need because more people want to be able to install in the center seat. We actually have content on our website that kind of addresses this idea of, if you want to be able to install a car seat in their center seating position, what are your options? And we made this really great table that allows you to choose the manufacturer for your vehicle, and then it'll tell you which car seat manufacturers allow for non-standard spacing at the spacing that's available in those cars. So it's a great tool to be able to use, but there are things that you need to keep in mind. And since they're specifically looking at a front-facing convertible seat, anytime that there's a forward-facing car seat that you're using, you want to make sure that the seating position you're using has a tether anchor, because that tether anchor is super important to reducing the forward motion of your kid and the car seat during a crash. And it's really important to make sure you always attach that.
I can totally get where they're coming from with these two cars, because with those seats and little legs that don't necessarily bend, and the seats there's no room in the back. I remember my kids
on the edges.
Right. I mean, I remember my kids complaining when they would see it. They would get so angry when I would bring one of those cars home because they couldn't fit. So awesome information. Again, check out consumerreports.org for more information on fitting child seats across in non-standard positions. We're going to move to the next question. Tom from North Manchester, Indiana. He says, I like to get the highest trim on every vehicle I purchase, since that usually gets me all of the features available on that model. However, those high-end models almost always come with larger rims and low-profile tires. My guess is more rubber between the rim and the road will equal a better ride. If that's the case, why does this seem to be the trend among higher trims on cars? I know we've all bought cars for this, but Ryan, as a tire guy, we're going to bounce over to you.
Yep.
What do you have advice for Tom or answer?
Yeah, so he's right. I mean, it's a trend. I mean, tires or wheel sizes have grown over the years. I mean, cars used to have 14-inch wheels on them, right? I mean, and then we went to 15, 16, and it's it's this evolution. And there's performance behind that, but there's a lot of it nowadays is we're at the performance is there. We can get the performance out of these tires in most sizes, but it's looks. I mean, it does look nice having these big wheels. And he's right. I mean, more rubber between the rim and the road is usually a better ride. Not always, because vehicles can be tuned for the ride too, even with these low-profile tires. Better than that, though, low-profile tires are more expensive, especially in those big rim sizes, and they're more prone to road hazards, potholes, stuff like that. So, I mean, my advice to him would be, when you are buying these cars, they can put on a lesser or a smaller wheel size with a little more sidewall. You can't just take that size, the rim that's on there, and put more rubber on it or a taller sidewall, because it won't fit in the wheel well anymore, and then you're throwing off speedometers and all kinds of stuff. You can't always do this either sometimes, because the brake sizes, the brake clearance inside of the wheel, the wheel's only so big, and the brakes have to fit inside of the wheel, right? It is worth talking to your dealer. We tell people when they're buying a car, take a look at what comes on this car for tires, wheels and tires. Price it out. See what it costs to replace them, because it could be outrageous. It might not be what you're looking for. But there is a chance that you can, downsize that wheels and get something a little more practical.
Yeah. Sometimes could there be also sometimes an all season might be a little better choice if they have
absolutely
have a 1-for-1 swap, like just get the all season version versus the high performance version.
Yeah, there are cars that come with summer tires, UHP ultra high performance summer tires on them, and that for a lot of people doesn't make sense. I mean, they wear out fast. You cannot drive them in cold or winter conditions at all. And the all season is just a better option for sure. But pay attention to that when you're buying the car. He's obviously paying attention. But it's a matter of talking to the dealer and seeing if they can get you a smaller wheel package. It would be a factory package, but hopefully you can do that.
Well, cool. Thanks, Ryan. Tom, let us know what happens. Be interesting to find out what happens with your experience at the dealership. Next is from Rick, who asks, Consumer Reports gives high marks to cars with crash avoidance systems and lesser marks to vehicles that don't have them. Aren't we all missing the point? Why do we need these systems? I put it to you that it all stems from distracted drivers using cell phones. For CR to rate these cars lower is doing a great disservice. The driver's habits are the real issue here, not the lack of safety equipment. So we all talked about this. I think we all have a similar opinion, but from my perspective, we're not actually hurting a car. We're not lowering the score of a car because of this. What happens is the vehicle is rated like any other test vehicle. Okay, we have our road test. We incorporate crash test data into our overall score. We incorporate the safety features, our reliability, and our owner satisfaction into it. And the safety features, these ADAS systems, advanced driver assistance systems, they just give a vehicle extra points. If they're standard on all versions of the vehicle, they just get extra points. So you're not doing a car a disservice by taking it away. They just don't get the extra credit. Doing that problem on the back of the paper, for example, in school. You could get 100. You could also get a 105. So that's the basic sense. But I know, Emily, we talked about it in just the general sense of what it's doing for safety and such.
Yeah, so, I mean, yes, there is a lot of distracted driving that comes from cell phones, but that's not the only cause of distracted driving. I mean, if you have passengers in your car, that's a distraction. If you're listening to music, that's a distraction. If the people around you on the road are being really erratic in their driving, that can be a distraction, right? There's so many different things, and a lot of it is just even our cultural pressures, which are not really changing anytime soon. Like, work-life balance isn't always great in the US. We have people that are sleep deprived and still driving. And that in and of itself impairs your judgment and impairs your cognitive ability. Like, we have a lot of different things that we need to think about. Even as you're driving, maybe you don't have any of these other distractions going on, but just even in your own mind, you're multitasking. You're thinking about like, what do I need to do at work? Like, I have this meeting coming up, or I need to get home and like start dinner, or like I have errands to run, or whatever. All just even our own thought processes can be distracting. Yeah. And so it's important, I think, to realize that the world is changing, our culture is changing. There's a lot more things to consider when people are on the road. And so I think it's responsible of automakers to put in systems that are going to help us with our own human nature. They're going to account for these things that are sometimes out of our control, or they're just the normalness of life now,
Yeah. And we've seen those automakers, the same automakers are responding to what people want with more complicated infotainment systems and visibility of the car. They like something that, they want an SUV, but they want it to be slick and sleek looking like a coupe. So then visibility's hurt. And Ryan, in our testing and in our driving, the systems all aren't 100% on. You can turn it off. You could deactivate it if you don't like lane keeping assist or lane depart, particularly lane keeping assist, which kind of ping pongs you.
Right.
But it doesn't affect you driving. Right. It's really just there to make you safe for your family's sake.
Yeah. I mean, to Emily's point, the world is changing around us. And there's, people are tired. There's a million things going on. These they're only making the car safer. Yep. I don't understand what he's saying in the sense of, all these systems are there to take care of us. We just become worse drivers. Yes and no. It's tough. It's still they're still making cars safer. I mean, the data's there.
There's distractions everywhere. Fixing the problem of the cell phone. Okay. In some ways, you could say Pandora's box has been way open for a long time.
That's not going back.
You're not going back on that. But look at safety systems like electronic stability control. People could have said, I can brake and I can control the car. You don't see rollovers to the same extent because of electronic stability control. It's just not there anymore. And there's advancements. Even seatbelts. I mean, for goodness sake, I know what I'm doing. I don't need safety. Yeah. No, they're there for a reason.
Right. If you were always going to be the only driver that's ever on the road, that's not a reality. But even then, if you're tired and you start to go off the road, like, you can still injure yourself. Like, the whole benefit of these systems is that they're facing reality. They're going to prevent injury. And we strongly encourage automakers to integrate them into their vehicles and make safety equitable for everyone, right? Yep. So that's why we want it to be standard across all trims.
Yep. So forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian warning, blind spot warning, all fantastic systems. We give manufacturers extra points for having them standard. We'll continue to do that and push the envelope for safety. So it'll be great to hear from all of you. If anyone's used one of these systems, or your opinions on it, send it to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. We're going to move to our next question from Brandon. With a toddler and another baby on the way, my wife and I are shopping for a 3-row crossover that we'd want to keep for the next decade or so. We've narrowed it down to 2 choices, an Acura MDX, which we love for the styling and handling, but weren't thrilled with the interior and questionable reliability. Our other choice is the Mazda CX-9, which has great driving dynamics and a nice interior, but we're iffy on the styling, and the cargo room felt smaller compared to the MDX. Help us choose. Emily, I know you had a strong opinion on the vehicle choice when we were going over these questions.
So I think the CX-9 is a better choice. Overall, car seat fit was pretty good in that vehicle. And with 2 kids, you're going to need good car seat fit, because for at least the next, 3/4 of those 10 years you're planning to have that car, you're going to be putting in some sort of seat somewhere in the vehicle. So I think that's a key factor. It also has standard ADAS systems, like the systems we were just talking about. It has your forward collision warning. It has the automatic emergency braking, all things that are important. And again, if you are anticipating, you're going to have these 2 kids, you're going to be doing things as a family, right? I've said this before. Having kids means that you have a lot of things in the car all the time, anytime you go anywhere. So that extra cargo room is going to be super handy because you're going to need it.
Yep. No. Ryan, you're carrying more bicycles and more gear at this point in life. So what's your thought on it?
So the CX-9, I would pick just, it's more fun to drive. It's a little more enjoyable to drive, I think. And the MDX has a infotainment system that I don't get along with. So I would pick the CX-9.
It's interesting because where Brandon is, I was at years ago. In fact, we own, I've said on the show before, 2011 Acura MDX. We needed a 3-row SUV. We had my goodness, my daughter wasn't quite 2, and my son was an infant, and we had to have a 3-row. We had to have it, and we don't really use the 3 rows that much. It certainly holds a lot of stuff. For example, my daughter, now 10, her upright base fits in the car with the 3rd row down.
Very nice.
So it's roomy, but I know we're unique in that we bounce around cars a lot. So if I needed something huge, I could
putting down your 3rd row.
But that's the thing.
Right?
The 3rd row lives down.
Right.
Now the Acura, I think the current one's a touch longer than mine. But like you said, if you have all 3 rows up, there's not much room behind in either one of those. But I would really take a hard look, Brandon, at do you need 3 rows? My experience, a lot of parents are all driving their own kids around. We're not carpooling.
Are you carpooling? Because that's the only reason I would see needing those extra seating positions.
Exactly. But anyway, so good question. Personally, I would probably go with the CX-9 as well. The Acura is very
after owning the MDX.
Yeah, I mean the Acura is friendly, and aside from the weird transmission, the 9-speed automatic, which has had some reliability issues, and also the infotainment system, the Mazda's infotainment system is equally weird.
It is. It's a little easier though, I think. It's a different MDX than what you have though.
It's a different MDX.
Car.
Ours has been reliable, but I would question that 3-row SUV. So our next question is from Mark from Long Island, New York. He says, I'll need new tires soon, and CR's tire buying guide makes specific recommendations for my car and tire size. But how do you grade the more subjective aspects of a tire, like handling and ride comfort? Obviously, I can't test drive tires and want to better understand how you arrive at your decisions. Ryan, how do we arrive at the decision?
Every year we test a group of tires, and Gene and I, Gene Peterson, my head boss, who's in charge of tire testing, we test this group of tires. We test everything back to back on the same vehicle. So we pick a vehicle that we feel is representative of that type of tire we're testing. So for passenger car tires, we'll use a Toyota Camry, very common car, very popular tire size. So we'll assess all this objective stuff that we do, such as ride comfort is, Gene and I get in the car, we do a lap around the track, we swap drivers, do another lap around the track, and then we rate it subjectively. And we're looking at things like steering feel, impact comfort, when you hit a pothole, bridge abutment things, storm drains, that kind of stuff, and then noise. And we're looking for stuff that hits you in the face. Like, is this, the tires are all generally pretty close, but things that really hit you in the face. Is this tire loud? Like, it's got this whirling noise, you hear it. If it's real stiff on impacts, that kind of stuff. We're trying to pull out the really good ones and the really bad ones. A lot of times you just end up with this group in the middle, and they're all pretty similar. So, in his case, in Mark's case, we're not testing it on his car exactly, but we've picked we did the best we could. We picked a car that we thought was the most representative of that group. So something like ride is completely subjective, meaning, that comes straight from us. There's no instrumentation that is giving us data. Though handling is a little different because it's actually there's subjective and objective data that goes into that. So when we do our ride evaluation, we do a steering feel assessment just because it's a good time to do it. So that's a subjective part of it. But then when we do avoidance maneuver, which is a double lane change, swerve to the left, swerve back to the right, there's a speed involved with that. So the faster the speed, the higher the rating, the better. Typically, the better the tire. That's an objective number. So the handling is a couple different things compiled together. It takes some of the subjectiveness out of it.
But I'd almost argue that even the subjective aspects of your rating have a control factor to them because you've been doing these tests now for like how long?
I've been here 15 years, so most of that, yeah.
Yeah, and Gene Peterson has been doing tire testing basically his whole life.
They invented the tire.
Yeah, more or less. So between the two of you doing the exact same circuits and it always being the two of you as testers and you're kind of comparing your ratings against each other, always one of you in the car with the other person, like that almost acts as a control. And in one sense, while you might not have like, instrumentation, you guys are almost the instrumentation in my perspective of it.
Yeah, and having two drivers is key because if we are off, we will revisit it. We're usually very close, not exact, but again, this isn't a perfect world. What we're doing, it's the best we can do. It's very good, but it's we can't test it on his car, your car, everybody's car. It's amazing that we're testing these 50, 60 models of tires alone. Never mind.
Exactly.
But we try to do our best to pick the best, the most representative vehicle, and our expertise.
But
Yeah.
there's a whole section on consumerreports.org about how we test our products, test car products, test cars. So check that out. We're going to move on to our next question from Brian, who asks, as I ponder replacing my combustion engine car with an all-electric, I was weighing the costs and benefits of leasing versus purchasing an EV. My initial thought was, since EV technology and range are advancing so quickly, it might make more sense to lease. But on the other hand, I've heard EVs have great resale value. What option would you choose? Brian, it's probably best to lease. That's what we found in a recent Consumer Reports story, which is available on consumerreports.org, in the sense that you can take the tax credit that's available, and it's a $7,500 tax credit for most EV manufacturers. Some of them, like Tesla, some of them, like General Motors, they phased out partially or completely those credits because they've sold so many vehicles. But a lot of the manufacturers like Audi and Hyundai and Kia, for example, even Nissan, they're still available. So what will happen is the dealer will actually take that credit, incorporate it into the price of the vehicle, and you're leasing the vehicle at a lower price. You also you have to ask for it though. They may not do it automatically, but it's pretty common. Also, like you said, with technology, as the technology changes, you're going to be able to get out of the vehicle and get into something newer. The tax credit actually may not, if you buy it, you may not be able to get the tax credit depending on how much tax you owe. So you would have to talk to an accountant for that, which might make buying it a little off, a little different for you. You may not want to do that.
And I think also one of the points that we covered in the story online is the idea about the depreciation, right? So like, because you're factoring in the tax credit, the value of the vehicle depreciates much faster, it seems like. And so your lease payment will already kind of factor that in. Right. And it seems like financially that might be a better bet for the consumer than to purchase and then trying to do resale. The other thing that I read was that some of them might have good resale values, but the 5-year cost of owning an EV is still more expensive than having a gas car. Yeah. So it doesn't seem like we're saturated enough in the marketplace for resale value to be like on a comparable level.
Right. You're seeing things such as Audi slowing down production for the e-tron. Nissan sold a ton of Leafs early on, but they had very low range. Then they brought in a second generation. Then they bumped the range of that. So the first ones, also Nissan was kind of giving them away, almost really low pricing. So that dropped their resale value, just pulled down the overall cost of those. So you can get into one cheaply. You could certainly get a used Nissan Leaf pretty affordably.
It sounds like it's a great time to buy a used one.
Right. You could buy a used one. But it also just depends as you're pondering replacing your combustion engine car. Leasing it, if you don't have to charge at home, so you don't have to make the infrastructure change. And also just a lot of the high mileage, the high range cars are expensive. The Hyundai Kona Electric and the Kia Niro EV, those are more affordable ones. You may want to consider if you're going to jump into those, but also figure in the charger cost for your house, unless you could charge outside. So I would say leasing, but there is a whole EV 101 and other EV information on consumerreports.org. So our next question is from Alex from Ohio, who asks, I drive an all-highway 50-mile round-trip commute to work each day. With our first child on the way, my wife and I are looking for something that will be safe and reliable, particularly for winter driving. I have EV charging stations at my job, which could allow us to get an all-electric or plug-in. Considering what is available or about to be released, what would suit my needs best? Automatic emergency braking and lane departure warning are a must, a level 2 automation system preferred, and our budget is flexible, so have fun. So Emily, first, what is he talking about with level 2 automation?
Yeah, so level 2 automation doesn't really mean anything to most people. I think this guy must work in like the automotive industry because it's a very industry term.
Right.
And it doesn't actually describe very much anything. So we don't use that at CR because most people don't know what it means. But essentially what it's referring to is you're looking for advanced driver assistance systems, such as like an adaptive cruise control coupled with something like lane keeping assist. So it's going to provide you with steering control. It's going to do acceleration and braking input. The vehicle will do all of those things together to basically, gauge the distance between you and the vehicle in front of you, adjust the speed of your vehicle as you're going, and also keep you within your lane, right?
So that's the cruise control, because unlike a regular cruise control where it's set it and forget it, so to speak, and you run up on the car in front of you, it adjusts.
Yes. So the adaptive cruise control will adjust based on what you set as your preferences for, how close you want to be with the car in front of you. And it'll either speed up or it'll brake to make sure you're maintaining that safe distance. And then the lane keeping assist part of it will keep you within your lane. So you still are driving the vehicle. It's still really important for you to, maintain control of the vehicle, to be paying attention. It's best if these systems are coupled with like a driver monitoring to ensure that you are indeed paying attention, that you are indeed, keeping your hands on the wheel and providing some input into the motion of the vehicle and where it's going, right? But that's really what he's talking about there. So he wants a system I get it. It's totally great when you're doing like highway driving.
Sure.
You want to be able to, especially if you have such a long commute, to be able to have a system that is going to help you with that.
But it's assisting. It's not taking over and he's watching videos.
These are assistance systems. They are not meant to be in control of your vehicle.
And we are nowhere near self-driving.
Nope.
All right.
So that's what he's talking about as far as level 2. He wants a vehicle that has this adaptive cruise control coupled with lane keeping assist. And he also wants to make sure that there's lane departure warning, which if there's lane keeping assist, there's typically lane departure warning. And then that also has the automatic emergency braking.
Well, I know that you have a list, a couple suggestions. We have it up on consumerreports.org. You could search for cars with advanced safety systems and find everything for 2020 and even used cars. So why don't you give us some choices and then we'll bounce it to Ryan with his.
Yeah. So for what he's looking for, all electric or plug-in, I thought that really kind of the 3 that sort of rose to the top in my mind are, the Kia Niro EV, the Hyundai Kona EV, and then the Subaru Crosstrek plug-in hybrid. With their baby on the way, between the 3 of those vehicles, the Crosstrek hybrid actually had the best rating in terms of car seat fit. So that would be something important for them to take into consideration because they're going to need to install their car seat in that car. So there's definitely that. And then all of them have the this adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist that he's looking for. I don't know if you guys have opinions on how well any of them drive compared to each other.
Ryan?
Yeah, so I would pick the Crosstrek hybrid just because I still get range anxiety from these fully electric cars. No, I think it makes it a better family vehicle in the sense that you can go on a trip with it and not worry. If they want to go far away for the weekend or something, you're okay. You charge it up, you get whatever you get, and then you're on the gasoline engine at that point. Driving wise, I mean the Kona EV is actually quite fun to drive. So that's a nice car.
I agree.
But again, you're limited to the battery and what the mileage that you get out of that. I would do the Crosstrek hybrid, to be honest with you.
One of the things he mentions is winter driving. I would say that, first of all, like Jake Fisher, for example, his wife drives a Prius.
Yep.
They put snows on it.
Beautiful.
It's a front-wheel drive car. Put snows on it.
There's
You're
nothing
gonna,
wrong with
you're gonna be
that,
good for that. So you could put snows on any of these. You don't necessarily have to go the Crosstrek hybrid. It also, that has a kind of a bigger battery impact into cargo room.
Right.
I was thinking a Prius plug-in Prius Prime. Yeah, say that 3 times fast. Prius Prime. If you want EV, but it's not. You're not going to drive that 50-mile part of that 50-mile trip only on EV.
Right.
If you want part of that 50-mile round trip and you can charge at work, either of those are great. The Niro or the Kona, great choices. Yeah. You can get that Nissan Leaf too. If you could charge it up, like we talked about before, you could put snows on it. So all options, they all have, new ones all have this. Toyota has the safety sense and Nissan has their safety system standard as well.
Yeah, but it also does sound like he has chargers at work. I don't really know the proximity of a charger for him, like on the weekend. So something else for them to consider. And I know, like we've talked about before, what does it do to your battery during the winter time?
Range drops, right?
Yeah, like every time you have to start it up and stuff like that. So lots of different things to consider. I mean, having those chargers at work certainly is a huge advantage because, you're guaranteed that you're going to get a full charge by the end of the day, every day. I think I'm kind of also with Ryan in the range anxiety. Like I've been in our Crosstrek hybrid for the past few days and, my range will go, like my EV range will go basically by the time I get home from work.
Right.
That part goes really quickly, but because I've been able to charge at work during the day, I'm able to like get the range back that I need. And then the gas part of the car has lasted me like a week.
Yeah.
So like it's been really great in that way. Like the fuel economy is really good.
It does take planning. I had our e-tron, our Audi e-tron. I had our Hyundai Kona electric, and went down to town to the chargers where I live, and they have charge point chargers, but they're free. The town, state subsidized, and they're constantly occupied. They're occupied by people who work downtown who just plug in for the day, which is kind of annoying. There's other chargers, but they're not downtown. And so, it does take a little bit. If you know you're going to have them and you know there's a lot of empty ones, great. Yeah. If you do have a haphazard, not the right word, but if you do have I'm not exactly sure, you have to incorporate that in your planning. So good choices. You could get any of those. They all have the safety systems. Snow tires will help you in the winter. Moving on, we have Marcelo from Stanford, California. I currently drive a 2014 Toyota Camry, which I've loved for being reliable, spacious, and good on gas. I've been thinking about upgrading to a used Lexus, either a 2014 CT200 or a 2014 ES300h, both at around 30,000 miles. I'd like a bump in luxury, but reliability is still my top priority. Ryan, you had a big opinion on this. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah, well, he answered the question himself. I mean, there isn't a better choice. The ES300h is like a more luxurious Camry, and it's a hybrid. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. Same company, super reliable. It's a little bigger, a little more roomy. It's super luxurious. It's nice.
Yeah,
rides nice. That's a no-brainer.
Even looking at our reliability data from the 2014 year for both those cars, we don't actually have enough for the CT200 to give it a reliability data for that year. But for the ES300, it has excellent reliability. And it seemed like overall, like the owner satisfaction was much better for that vehicle than the CT200. It had better ride. Yeah.
The CT is a little stiff in the ride, and it's a cramped cockpit. The driving position quite cramped. The ES is just a no-brainer. I mean, I wouldn't even go any further with that.
Marcelo, we appreciate the question, but you already answered it. So good luck with the ES300h.
Hope you like it as much as Ryan did.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Talking Cars. As always, send us your questions, talkingcars@icloud.com. We love to get them, videos and text. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.